Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our listeners all over the world. This is the 19th CoP interview in the CoP interview series hosted by the UN Women Training Center's Community of Practice. My name is Rania Alahmer. I'm the CoP consultant, and I'm very lucky to be joined today by Dr. Rania Alahmer, who will be speaking to us about reproductive health, gender-based violence, and training for gender equality. So, as you know, the CoP interview series features a range of interviews with experts all over the world on topics that are related to training for gender equality. And this builds on our series in 2017 and 2018, and it will run from July to December 2019. So each interview lasts for half an hour, and anyone who's listening live can ask questions to our speaker at any time during the session. So without any further ado, let me introduce today's guest. So Dr. Rania Alahmer is a senior gender-based violence and reproductive health specialist with the UN Population Fund based in Suva, Fiji. So she's with UNFPA Pacific, and she has over 16 years of experience as a trainer on gender mainstreaming, gender budgeting, gender auditing, and a range of topics related to reproductive health, gender-based violence, HIV, obstetric emergencies, monitoring and evaluation, project cycle management, and epidemiology. She's also an obstetrician and a gynecologist and a public health professional who's worked with a number of international organizations and initiatives over her career, such as the establishment of the Protection from Sexual Exploitation and Abuse PSEA network for Syria. So Rania, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, hi, how are you?
Wonderful, thank you very much for being here, and it's wonderful to have you. And I wonder if we could begin. I'd like to ask you a bit about your personal experience and your professional journey towards becoming a professional in gender-based violence and reproductive health. So what first prompted your interest in working on these areas?
Yeah, I would like to thank you and thank UN Women Training Center for this opportunity, because I'm a very good believer of UN Women mandate, and I have been attending a lot of courses recently with the UN Women Training Center. So I have been graduated from I was in the first batch for gender advocacy by the UN Women and Kate, and also did the leadership training with UN Women. So it's really fascinating, and I'm really happy always to come back to UN Women and speak about how much the trainings of UN Women have impacted my career. To start with, I started my career as a medical professional. I was an obstetrician gynecologist still, but I stopped practicing. And being an obstetrician gynecologist at the time of a war in Sudan back into early 2000, it was really difficult times for the country, because as some of you know that there were the war in Darfur. So I was deployed as a medical obstetrician gynecologist in the war zones, and I was dealing with rape survivors in daily basis. So that really changed my life, because when I started doing my job as a medical professional, I was always part of the women and the feminist communities and their advocacy and awareness sessions, but I wasn't that sure that how much I can do by myself to change the realities of the women, unless I faced the realities and worked in daily basis with rape survivors. That was really early, and that made me stop my medical practices and went for a second degree in public health, which was focusing on it was about medical sociology, where I studied the behaviors and attitudes of medical practitioners towards rape survivors, and and it comes within the analysis of a lot of gender issues within the practitioners, within the health facilities, within the the support system that we are assuming that the survivors can have. So yeah, my life has changed since that forever. So I started after that studying for humanitarian intervention, went to Fordham University, did a diploma for humanitarian assistant, and felt that this is not enough. So I did the 1 year training in gender advocacy with UN Women. So yeah, that like being a gender advocate, it's something that I believe on, and it's not just a believing. It is really something that I enjoy, and I really do on not on just the job basis, but also in my personal life.
That's excellent. And I wonder, well, since you work in a field that's so obviously so life-changing and so serious, and can be, I'm sure, very very difficult. I wonder, you mentioned about your experiences of taking, for example, you participated in the professional development of gender trainers program that was developed by the Royal Tropical Institute of the Netherlands and the training, UNO Training Center, and you've also done, as you said, the training on transformative leadership. I wonder, why did to participate in these courses specifically, and what did you learn most from these experiences, and what value has it had in your training?
To start with, people thinks that generally people have the feeling that it's very easy to study gender or feminist theories by your own. But I'm speaking the reality that unless you have someone who teach you this on an academic basis, because my background is medical, so I'm a medical practitioner, and I always I always have a value in which I found it in myself for the people who have studied the academics of everything. So everything built on theory and justification, and real rooting to that subject, to our life matters, is something that we really need to dig in and study and understand more and more. So that was my belief. So when I was driven to the diploma, the gender diploma, I was really thinking of having this experience by gender professionals who were and most of them like the trainers for the gender advocacy diploma were really mastering the experience of gender and gender mainstreaming, and they have a lot of experience in the field with 20 plus years. So that was an amazing atmosphere to learn and to discuss and to find someone who's like you. So on the date of the graduation from the diploma, I was telling everyone that I found a tribe. So it's not like a small family. No, it's a full tribe, and you cannot know them on your daily basis when you are crowded with all of the work tasks. It's only an event like this 1 year study for the diploma that you create using the stripe links. So you identify your colleagues and the people who have the same vision, and they share the same concerns as you in that platform, and you connect to them. So that was an amazing experience, and yeah, I'm looking forward to support them, and and then I really after I graduated, I kept communicating with some of them and trying to to share my work with them, ask their advices on some of the matters. So it's still continuing, and it's a great opportunity.
It certainly sounds like it has a very positive value in terms of solidarity and giving you a network and really, as you say, a tribe with other gender trainings. And I wonder then,
Yes.
because you touched on it, we could speak a bit about your approach in general to training for gender equality, because your field of sexual and reproductive health is a very particular and very important field for gender equality. I wonder, how do you describe your approach methodologically, and what kind of, in these settings, what kind of training activities are your sort of go-to? And if you could give us any examples of activities that you find particularly useful.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm used to do training since long time, but when the trainings for medical professionals, because this is like the top of the hierarchy of the trainings that we do. So we do very specialized trainings for medical professionals who are like providing services for rape survivors. Like this is the most specialized training that I perform. But also we have the general trainings and the awareness and the community trainings. But since I have been enrolled in the gender advocacy one, I'm looking at all of those training materials from another perspective. Because like the medical field, when we are speaking about the medical, like the medical perspective for reproductive health, they are really based on science and solid science, which is like somehow rigid. Yeah, it's not speaking to the human being inside more than the science and ticking the boxes of like what are the vital signs of this patient, and treating the survivors or the clients in that field as like as one box with no feeling. So something that have been changed is to look at those trainings from a perspective of a feminist, and trying to make that like equally like showing the feminist theories and approach into equal opportunities, into pushing into positive imaging, all of those feminists believe like for me it's the beloved concepts and beloved approaches from the feminist theory is changing the way that I'm doing my training since then. And yeah, they are not that rigid. There is always this there's always this touch of equal opportunities, but it's really challenging, yeah, because most of them, starting by the groups that we are training, male dominancy in the high hierarchies of the medical practice is really worrying. And we were speaking about sexual reproductive health and right, and you go to a room to train and you find that there is just one only female in that room, because most of the decision makers are not female. So you start questioning yourself, like how all of this, like men are taking decisions on reproductive health and rights, and they are speaking about women health, and there is just only one woman in this room who's who's very polite and keeping silent all of the time. This is why in all of the trainings I do some sensitization when I start, because it's not fair to start without laying the ground of the understanding of what is gender and why gender is important, and why in this classroom we are looking for female participation. It's not because I don't like you as a bunch of men, but it's like we need more women in this room to decide for the reproductive health rights. And that is the most sensitive part of it, because if it's not handled very well, or if the facilitator is not able to do it in a friendly way so people will understand the message, it will create some barriers in that way. And not only this, because like I did some facilitation in the Middle East, and speaking about women rights, and even from the perspective starting by the women health, it was very difficult. So it was very difficult for men to understand like why those people aren't concerned by the women health.
I think you raise a very
why?
I want to, since I wonder if I could ask a little bit about so what kinds of resistances and what kinds of things come up, especially if you're in a situation where, say, the hierarchy is very much dominated by men. In the training, it's very much dominated by men. I wonder, how do you negotiate that, and what kind of resistances have you experienced, and how do you navigate these?
Yeah, resistance varies, but resistance varies from from one country to other countries, and one of the very 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 it's very obvious obstacle that we are as foreigners. We are considered foreigners when we are doing those things, and you are considered that you're carrying the UN logo and you are coming to this country to teach them. So there's always this doubting that what do you have on it? Why you are here? What is the hidden agenda behind you coming and talking about women's rights? So that is even before you open your mouth, so you start the session, and after that you have all of those uh, religion, cultures, and interestingly, all of the religions, they have the same justifications towards rejecting the ideas of equality. And to give you a solid example, last year I was in Tonga in response to one of the very devastating humanitarian crisis. It was TC Gita. So it was a cyclone which have hit Tonga in the Pacifics. Very, very, it was very difficult time for the country. And in one of the discussions, we were discussing that Tonga is not a signatory of a CEDAW. And one of the women, very high hierarchy in the hospital, she was telling me that our religion in Christianity, we have the dignity of women have been saved, and in Christianity, blah 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 blah. And when I was discussing with her this opinion for her, how rigid she is, and she's not going to support the government to sign the CEDAW because she believes that the religion have brought more rights to women than the convention that have been made by people. I have a deja vu of the same discussion that I had with a Muslim imam in Libya in 2011, discussing the same issue of CEDAW signature. So it is the same justification that the sheikh, the imam in Libya, the Muslim imam, was using to convince me that he don't want the country to sign CEDAW because the Islam have created more rights for women than this convention. I just heard all of it again in Tonga by a woman speaking about Christian religion. So this is why I was telling my colleagues in the Middle East that there is segmentation when the people start speaking about in what religion women have been rights. The gender is easier to be, gender issues is easier to discuss between Muslims or between this and it is the same because everyone reads from the same book. And when it goes to culture, the same things happens. In Papua New Guinea, they speak about customs and cultures and witchcrafts, which is the same as speaking in the Middle East about female genital mutilation with the elderly woman who will say that the woman, if she's not circumcised, she will be dirty and she will be a witch one day. So it is each condition is different. But you can find that there is a logical justification of all of our obstacles, which is shared globally with different faces, and it needs from the facilitator. And I'm speaking generally, for facilitators who want to do this job. You need to study, and you need to open your eyes to understand all of the gender dynamics in the communities before you open your mouth. You cannot make a change unless you understand and you absorb whatever happening in that community dynamics to start speaking about gender issues. Because by all means, if you are not part of that community, people will always consider you as a foreigner, and they will never listen to you. I wish that is answering the question, or there is something I'm
Yes, very
missing.
much. No, it's perfect.
Yeah,
And I wonder like if we could expand a bit more on what you said about like the fact that different contexts obviously are different, but there's a similar threat and I guess a similar response maybe to resist in the sense that you really need to know your context and you need to know who you're speaking with. And do you
yeah,
think, for example, when you're entering, because you say, for example, if you enter as a UN representative into another country, they'll always treat you as from coming from outside. And have you ever worked, or do you find it's useful to work with maybe also local gender trainers, next to you, like bringing them in as co-facilitators in order to, reach out to the people that you're training?
yeah. That's one of the very interesting stories that I had in Syria, because in Syria, people were really, were really close at the wartime. Yeah, everyone was not ready to listen to gender. So there is a lot of issues happening around us. We are sieged. We don't have electricity. We don't have water. We don't have. And here comes this UN people speaks about gender equality. Come on, you're like, and you need to have a gate opener, someone to open the door. And I think that the program of UNFPA was very lucky to hire number of volunteers and young, enthusiastic group of volunteers to start doing that in the community. So it was really very nice when they are listening, and we are just, the community is listening, and you take the back seat, and you just, advise on how they should navigate into that crowd. But that was the case. And personally, I do believe that in each context, you need the trainer or trainers and advocates from the country. So in all of the countries that I have been deployed, it was part of my deliverables to um, uh, not to leave that country without a team of trainers. And this is what I have done in all of the countries that I have been deployed to. One of the things that I'm doing now, and this is, like on voluntary base for the International Association of Facilitators globally, is to support the young volunteers, facilitators. So I'm helping into, picking up some of the facilitators in Egypt and in Sudan and in Kenya. So I do coach them on my own time so they can do something to their community, grass community. And I'm really happy that, the Kenyans are coming very, the Kenyan group are very enthusiastic, and they are feminist. So they are turning the feminist theory in what they are doing, especially with grassroots organizations. So I do believe in that, and I really support that on a personal and professional matter.
That's wonderful. And I think it's as you say, it's very important, this domino effect of, building others and helping others to get to the same position that you're in, because obviously you've had so much experience around the world. And I wonder if when you build these, teams of trainers, is it an equal gender balance, or is it very much skewed in favor
Yes.
of more women?
Yeah, no, it is more okay. I wanted to, to speak about it, because I will tell you, not always all of the organizations will be very sensitive. But, when I was in Turkey, okay, when I was in Libya, I started a core training team, which I hired males and females, and the males were doing fantastic, because in the southern Libya, where it's a Bedouin communities, girls cannot talk to public. So to do that, we needed, male advocates to go and to speak to communities, and it was really changing points in life when one of them was volunteering. He was a dentist, and he went to speak to a high school. We were having an outreach program, and everyone in the high school, he was listening to this doctor. His name is Anas, Dr. Anas, like someone who's, you're like, wow, all of them, they want to be Dr. Anas one day. because he's a, he's coming from the capital. He speaks English and he works with the UN, and he's a doctor. So all of those students, that class was really phenomenal because they were looking up to him, like you can see in their eyes, whatever he's going to say, that they are going to imitate. So he started by saying, my shirt which I'm wearing today, I didn't ask my sister to iron it for me. So all the boys were like, whoa, that I ironed my t-shirt by myself, and the boys start talking. It was really something that you can feel it inside of that room, that everyone is questioning, like, okay, so he's a great man, and we need to be like this great man, but we don't need, to use our sisters or our mothers to, there is an element of equality have been just, raised in front of them by the presence of this male advocate. So try to repeat the idea when I was in South Turkey working, and here comes the objection from the senior management. This is a GBV program. How dare you think of hiring males? Yeah, and I was like, oh my goodness, now I need to start sensitizing the management of the organization, who should be sensitive about gender issues. How much is important for us to start programming and to have male advocates to work with us in the GBV program. And it was a fight. I'm really regretting the time that I lost for that fight. But after a while, they have been convinced, and they allowed me to hire male advocates to go to the camps, because we were working on the camp setting. And after a while, they were like, "You will need more." I said, "Why?" Because we think that your idea of bringing males is protecting for the female facilitators. No, this is not the idea. I'm not protecting the female facilitators. I want the people to listen to the male and the female facilitators, so they can have the experience in front of their eyes, that it is happening, it is possible, men and women can do the same job. It was an ongoing fight for some time, but I'm really happy that also we had hired, some male advocates in South Turkey, in the camps. Yeah.
That's very positive. And I wonder, could you elaborate more on this idea that it sounds like it may be more easy maybe to navigate, or less challenging to navigate community level resistances or grassroots level resistances compared to resistances in organizations, when managers who are in charge of very liberal mandate that's supposed to be equality don't really understand the idea that gender equality involves everyone, not just women.
Yes.
And I wonder, do you think has it been your experience that that's sort of a similar thing that's come up for you in different contexts, or has it been more pronounced in some rather than others?
In some countries, it's in some countries it's individuals. It's not about the system, it's about the individuals who are working in that system, and how much their own prejudges is is managing their their managerial decisions. So those people will be the same people who are who have been the first one to finish the online gender training. And those are the same people who have been putting those certificates, laminated certificates, and putting them in their offices, and in the walls of their offices, so that we have done the gender budgeting, we have done the gender climate change, we have done. But when you dig deep there is still this this inherited prejudice that they haven't challenged. And this is something that when we studied in the leadership program, the transformative leadership program by UN Women, it was very big issue. And I really appreciate that, because that training itself, those sessions which were discovering those issues were really important for me. because they will help me to navigate more when I'm faced by such challenges. Because whatever like online trainings that we are doing, and those senior people are checking because they need to go higher and higher in the hierarchy, we need to know where is the buttons, because we are, as feminists, I'm speaking about people who believe of what they are doing, we need to know how to utilize those buttons when we are doing the best for the programs and for the feminist case.
That's wonderful. And I wonder if you could also maybe speak a bit about, the fact that sexual and reproductive health and rights are often considered a sensitive topic in different settings. And, now they seem to be under more threat than in many recent years. And I wonder, like, what kind of advice would you give for trainers who are either starting out or expanding in this field of reproductive health? Like, what kind of things should they bear in mind when they're conducting the training?
Yeah. Yeah, I want everyone to start by the understanding that reproductive health are not about women only. Because people think that okay, it's reproductive health and right, reproductive sexual health and rights. Yeah, let's bring the women. No, it's not about women. Everyone have the right to have, to reproduce or to have a nice sexual life. It is the well-being of a human being, and saying that I'm saying about women, men, transgender, lesbians, gays, everyone is in that package of sexual reproductive health and rights. And this is like unless you are a real believer on it, you will not contemplate it in a way that can allow you to advocate or train. And this is a very important part of the training, because when we are doing trainings like this, which is gender or gender advocacy or gender mainstream, all of those social sciences which is related to your beliefs and behavior, you can be a brilliant trainer. Like you can just deliver whatever in that book. But if you have about 1% of what you are saying, because you are not a believer and you have your own biases inside of yourself, the audience will understand that and they will figure that out. So this is why, I will advise, people who wants to work in sexual reproductive health and right to make an inventory for yourself before you step in front of any classroom or any audience, any types of audience. If you don't believe that everyone have the right to reproduce and have an effective, pleasant sexual life, you have your own prejudices or your biases, it's better not to stand, because people will figure it out. And you will be trimming that information that you want to have, to send to those people. So yeah, believe on what you are advocating for. That's my message.
That's a very powerful message. I like the emphasis really on believing, and on also, as you say, on honesty, like being honest with your audience, because if you're not, they will know.
Yeah.
And well, thank you so much, Rania. This has been such a wonderful interview. It's been such a privilege. And I wonder if we could end with one last little question. I wonder if you could tell us maybe a motivational story, one of your training experiences, similar to the one you spoke about in Libya, where you've experienced or you've witnessed change in the participants, or maybe in yourself in a training setting.
Yeah, changing myself. I'm always changing every day. I'm very I'm really I love the thing of being changeable every day, of being that flexible every day. Trying to absorb what's happening around you, and this is what a really feminist is. Yeah, it's changing yourself, educating yourself every day by the experiences that you have. And one of the toughest toughest training that I have done, it was training for medical doctors in Syrian medical doctors. It was in the borders, Turkish borders, in 2012 12, either 12 or 13, I cannot recall now. But for them, because they were a bunch of old doctors, and I don't know who did the selection, because I have been just invited to facilitate the clinical management training. And we are using WHO modules for clinical management for sexual assault and rape survivors. And the first entry to the room, everyone was looking at me. Who's this young girl who's coming to teach these old doctors? So it was really interesting, the dynamics in that room when I dedicated the first day to speak about gender norms. Because everyone was rushing to go to the medical field, to the medical practices, medical examination, medical history. They know it in and out because they have been practicing medicine forever. But when we start speaking about, can you give me a story of a rape survivor that you have treated lately, and how do you evaluate yourself? What do you think? What do you think? Why do you think you have done the right thing for that survivor? When I started touching those areas, people started to feel that they are, I'm really taking their clothes off. It's like I'm telling them that, just criticize yourself that you have not been, because you are a medical doctor, you are doing your routine work. So the first day was really bad. And one of them, spoke to one of the co-facilitators who was a Turkish national, and he said that this young doctor, she comes from a Western background, and she wants to teach us. We can teach her medicine. She don't know anything. So the training was 5 days, and the facilitator came and told me, very nice young Turkish lady. And she told me that I think they will have a resistance here in the room. So the second day I was telling them that I'm not here to tell you medicine. I'm not here to train in medicine because I know all of you, know it all, and you can teach me. But I'm here to emphasize that the gender perspective of this. And I want you to be sensitive to that, because I have been working with rape survivors on a daily basis. For 3 years, I was every day treating from 5 to 8 survivors. And it's not about practicing that, ticking the box and, you're like collecting numbers. It's about how much have you changed the life of that survivor. So it was, it was very heavy 5 days, trying to emphasize what is survivor-centered approach, why it's very different from the medical way of treatment when you are just counting the patients and treating the symptoms. It's more about, how do you support, how do you treat her, how your words can create harm. You don't mean it, but let's do that. What are the words that you are using in your daily practice? After the last day, that guy was the one who presented a small speech by the participants, and he was like, I was wrong, but I'm starting now to think that there is something more than medicine, which Rania was teaching us. And I was really over the sky when he was, stepping, because when he said that he would be the one who's delivering the participant speech, I was like, oh my goodness. But his testimony at the end of the training, have just changed everything. And even my team after that just started believing in what we are doing, because at the time of crisis, the members of the team will be just like, okay, we are finding a job because there is a crisis in Syria, we are working with Turkey borders, but after that they started feeling that there is different. We are doing the things for a different, for a different reason. We are not here just to spend money, and we believe in what we are doing. So that's just not just impacted the group of those doctors, but also the team that was working with me in facilitation.
That's such a positive story, Rania. I really, really like the emphasis you place on this aside from the solidarity, also just this winning hearts and minds and really appealing to the emotions more than I think that's a really exciting and inspiring approach, and our listeners will take away a lot from that. Thank you so much today for being with us today and for sharing your excellent knowledge and your experience and your expertise. I think it's been such an enriching experience. So thank you very much, Rania.
Thank you, Raya. I'm really glad that we have done this.
So am I. And thank you to everyone who listened in live today. And so this will be broadcast on the 15th of August 2019, and it'll be available on our YouTube channel after that for forever. And we hope that you'll learn a lot from this. And thank you very much again, Rania, for
Thank you,
wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you, Raya. Thank you. Bye bye.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.